Rewire your brain and reclaim your life. What if I told you that a large part of what you call who I am is actually repeated emotional memory, running on autopilot? Emotion, past experiences, trauma, and identity blend together so deeply that the body reacts before the mind even realizes it. The brain loves shortcuts. The subconscious runs old programming. And most people end up living more in survival mode than in creation. Maybe you've already tried to change habits, beliefs, or decisions, but something always pulled you back. It's not a lack of willpower. It's emotional conditioning, emotional reactivity, and automatism working together. Without awareness, attention, and presence, the body keeps repeating the same chemical reactions, while your vision of the future stays in the background. The good news? Neuroplasticity isn't just a lab concept, it's a daily practice. With metacognition, meditation, intention, and a new relationship between heart and brain. Like heart coherence, real reprogramming becomes possible. Healing, emotional release, gratitude, and love stop being just beautiful ideas and become energy applied to change. Not to become someone else, but to finally choose who you decide to be. Memory, emotion, and the distortion of the past. Memory is not a faithful archive. It's alive, emotional, and deeply influenced by your internal state. When a strong emotion appears, the brain records the moment with colors far more intense than they actually were. Over time, the past becomes an edited version, not shaped by facts, but by the emotion attached to them. That's why two people can live the same situation and tell completely different stories. The subconscious prioritizes survival, not historical accuracy, and ends up freezing certain moments. Every time you remember, the body reacts as if it's happening now. Sweat, tension, a racing heart. Classic automatism. A simple exercise helps break this pattern. When remembering something difficult, observe how you remember it, not what you remember. This metacognition creates space between awareness and emotion, weakening the conditioning. Gradually, the memory loses emotional charge, and the mind regains control. Trauma as identity. Over time, trauma stops being just an experience and becomes a silent label. Identity begins to form around pain, as if the past explains and justifies everything. I am this way because of what I lived. Sounds logical, but often it's just old programming, asking to continue. The problem is that the brain loves coherence, even when that coherence no longer serves your life. If the internal story doesn't change, the subconscious works hard to prove it true. Emotion reinforces the narrative. The body responds, and the person stays trapped in a character who already served their purpose. Questioning this identity isn't denying what happened. It's choosing not to live there. A simple practice. Write your story in the third person, as if it were a book. This activates awareness, reduces emotional reactivity, and shows that identity can be flexible. A chapter, not the entire book. The body trapped in the past, repeatedly thinking about trauma, isn't just a mental habit. It's daily chemical training. Each memory activates emotion, releases cortisol and adrenaline, and puts the body into survival mode, without asking whether the danger is real. For the brain, imagining and living are almost the same. That's why sometimes you know something is over, but your chest tightens anyway. The subconscious doesn't understand time. It responds to internal stimuli. When the mind relives the past, the body reacts as if it's happening now. Pure automatic programming. A practical way out is to start with the physical. Slow breathing, body awareness, small moments of presence. Simple heart coherence techniques, like inhaling for 5 seconds and exhaling for 5, signal safety to the brain. When the body relaxes, emotion loses intensity and memory begins to reorganize. Emotions as conditioning. Thoughts are the language of the brain. Feelings are the language of the body. When they repeat together, they create powerful conditioning in the subconscious. Over time, emotion appears before conscious thought. Pure emotional automatism. That's how people become addicted. to guilt, fear, or anger, even while saying they want to change. The brain associates these emotions with the familiar, the safe. With survival, change starts to feel dangerous. Repeating the past feels comfortable. A practical starting point is mapping emotional triggers throughout the day. Ask yourself, what was I thinking right before I felt this? This simple act of attention activates metacognition and weakens the automatic loop. When you see the pattern, you're no longer completely inside it. Awareness versus automatism. Most of what we do daily doesn't come from conscious decision, but from old programming. The subconscious takes the wheel, based on memory, emotion, and habits formed long ago, often in childhood. The result? Adult life becomes a well-rehearsed repetition. Automatism is efficient for survival, but terrible for creating a new reality. Without awareness, you react instead of choose. You respond instead of create. Emotional reactivity becomes the norm, and the body keeps running the same script, even when the mind wants something different. The antidote is metacognition, observing thoughts, emotions, and impulses without confusing yourself with them. A simple practice is to pause before reacting and name what's happening. This is fear. This is habit. When attention enters the process, awareness takes the lead, and the cycle begins to change. Analyzing trauma with emotion makes it worse. Revisiting trauma while carrying the same emotion from the past is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. The brain relives the event. The body goes into alert, and emotional programming is reinforced. Instead of healing, repetition happens. Many people believe that talking a lot about the problem solves everything. But without presence, it only deepens conditioning. The subconscious doesn't learn through rational analysis. When emotion is high, it learns through internal state. If the state is fear or pain, the memory solidifies. Emotional release begins when you can observe the story without being dragged by it. Practices like conscious writing, breathing, or simply walking in silence create emotional distance. When awareness leads, trauma loses strength and opens space for internal reorganization, emotional shift, and heart coherence. When elevated emotions like gratitude, love, and appreciation come online, something powerful happens in the body. The heart enters coherence, sending the brain a clear message. The danger is over. This state pulls the nervous system out of survival mode. With that signal of safety, the brain reduces emotional reactivity and activates areas related to learning and neuroplasticity. The mind becomes clearer, the body more regulated, and the subconscious becomes receptive to change. This isn't mysticism, it's applied physiology. A simple practice. Close your eyes for 2 minutes, breathe slowly, and recall a genuine moment of gratitude. Feel it in your chest, not just in your head. This emotional shift generates energy for healing and prepares the ground for deep reprogramming. Meditation as a tool for change. Meditation isn't about stopping thoughts. It's about stepping out of autopilot and training presence. When you quiet external noise and observe the mind, the body gradually leaves survival mode and enters creation mode. That's where attention becomes an ally of awareness. With practice, emotional reactivity decreases, and the space between thought and action grows. Thanks to neuroplasticity, the brain learns new pathways, and the subconscious begins accepting new responses. 5 minutes a day is enough to start change. No elaborate excuse is required. To begin today, sit comfortably, adjust your breathing, and observe the air coming in and out. When the mind wanders, gently return. Books like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle help clarify this state of presence without complicating the process. Deprogramming and reprogramming. Change isn't about fighting who you were. It's about making conscious what was invisible. Deprogramming begins when memory, emotion, and habits stop operating in the dark. The simple act of noticing already weakens automatic patterns. The next step is letting go of old emotional habits, even when they feel familiar. The brain resists at first because the familiar feels safe for survival. But with intentional repetition of new thoughts and emotions, neuroplasticity does the heavy lifting. Reprogramming happens when you feel the new, before it becomes external reality. Affirmations without emotion don't work. Internal state is what teaches the body and the mind. Repeating with attention, presence, and intention turns the new into a healthy automatism. Future vision versus the past. When there's no clear vision of the future, the brain automatically turns to memory to decide. The past becomes the reference. The subconscious runs old programming, and life continues in repetition mode. It's not a lack of potential. It's a lack of internal direction. In this state, the environment takes control. People, news, problems, and external emotions dictate internal states. The mind reacts. The body follows. Emotional reactivity grows. Without conscious intention, the day happens to you, not by you. A simple exercise. Ask yourself daily, who am I training myself to become? Writing a clear vision, even if it feels distant, activates creation instead of survival. When the future pulls you forward, the past naturally loses its grip, creating reality from internal state. Nothing new is created from a sense of lack. Creation happens from the state you sustain internally. The brain learns more from emotion than from words, and the subconscious replicates what the body already feels is real. First the state, then the experience. When someone tries to change thinking, when this happens, it'll feel better. They reinforce survival mode. The inversion is the key. Feeling whole, confident, or abundant before the external result. This alignment generates coherent energy between mind and body. A direct practice is to start the day by consciously choosing how you want to feel. Use breathing, posture, and gratitude-focused attention to sustain that state. With repetition, the brain associates the new feeling with normality, accelerating change. Conscious decision as the turning point. There's a moment when change stops being an idea and becomes a decision. When that decision is paired with strong emotion, the brain records a new long-term memory. The subconscious understands this is serious now, and programming begins to reorganize. This turning point doesn't require drama or crisis. It's born from awareness. It's when you realize that repeating the past costs more energy than changing. The body feels it. The mind aligns. And intention creates internal coherence. A practical way to seal this decision is to write it down and read it out loud with presence. Feel the commitment in your body. Decisions that are felt, not just thought, create new identity and open real space for creation. Identity as something flexible. Identity only becomes a problem when it turns rigid. It was useful at some point for survival, but it doesn't have to be permanent. The common mistake is confusing who you were with who you must continue being. Personal stories gain strength through repetition, not necessarily through truth. The brain seeks coherence, so it repeats old narratives, even when they no longer serve. Questioning these stories activates awareness and opens space for new choices. A simple practice. Ask yourself, does this still represent me? If not, thank the role that identity played and let it go. A healthy identity is one you can release when your vision of the future calls for a different version of you. The past can explain many things, but it doesn't have to define the rest of your life. Memory, emotion, and trauma show where you came from, not where you need to go. When awareness takes the lead, the story loses its power to command. True change doesn't require extreme pain or emotional collapse. It's built through daily practice, attention to internal states, and intention applied consistently. Small, repeated choices reprogram the brain more than empty grand promises. Healing happens when you replace repetition with presence and automatism with creation. It's not about erasing what you lived. It's about using it as the foundation for something new. The next step always starts now, in the state you choose to sustain. Now that you understand how memory, emotion, and conditioning shape the body, the mind, and the subconscious, the question shifts from, why did this happen to me? To, what will I do with this now? Awareness turns history into learning. Learning becomes available energy for creation. Which emotional habits have you been repeating on autopilot? Which beliefs still tie your identity to the past? And perhaps the most important question, what internal state are you training every single day? Remember, the brain learns through repetition. The body responds to what it feels. And change happens when intention meets daily practice. You don't need to wait for a crisis to choose differently. Start today with attention, presence, gratitude, and love, applied to small choices. If this content resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep deepening this process of reprogramming, healing, and emotional release.